Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar brought to you by Microbial Insights. This will be about Roots So Deep, Science, Soil, and the Regenerative Revolution. We appreciate that you are taking the time to join us today. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker, Peter Vick. Peter Vick is a professor of practice at Arizona State University, where he teaches students to make short documentary films about sustainability solutions. He is the creator of Carbon Nation and the short documentary series Carbon Cowboys. MI would like to add we are happily performing quaternary ag testing for this project as well. So we are excited for this collaboration opportunity. Before I let Peter take it away though, I would like to remind you all, as always, this webinar is being recorded. It'll be available under the webinars section at the top menu of our website, so that way you can view it after as well. If you indeed miss any opportunity to see part of this, Peter has been gracious enough to offer the viewers of this webinar a 50% off promo code. As you can see on your screen right now, you can either scan the QR code or go to rootsodeep.org. Right there at the bottom of that QR code. A little sort of information about that. You'll just click on the Rent Roots So Deep button. You'll click rent $10, and then of course you'll be able to use the coupon code on the next screen. Once you create an account and enter that coupon code, you'll be able to rent it for $5 with a whopping 50% off, and that way you can sort of review some of the materials that are being shown in today's webinar. So after Peter is done, there will be some time for questions. Feel free to type your questions in the questions segment in that sidebar. That way we can read off as many as we can when that time comes. So join me in welcoming a true advocate for sustainable solutions, Peter Vick.
Thank you, Marshall, and thank you, Microbial Insights, for having me today. I'm going to go ahead and change the screen here. So we'll put the screen back up with the QR code. I'm just going to go ahead and take this guy off. Hold on one sec. Dealing with double screens, and I'm not at my desk at home. So there we go. Now we got it together. So now I'm going to be talking about our docuseries, Roots So Deep. You can see the devil down there. Let's see, hang on one second. I just hit the wrong button. I'm having a good time. And so Roots So Deep is a 4-part docuseries that we made starting in 2018. And a lot of the field work finished up in 2022. But some of the papers, actually 13 papers have been published from our research, and the last series of papers from the greenhouse gas cycling, we're going to be getting a report any day now from that team, and then those papers will be submitted for publication. So that's the last bit of our work. Our work is basically looking at adaptive multi-paddock grazing, which is, I'll get into details of that, but it's a regenerative way of grazing. It's not necessarily new. Folks have been doing it for a long time in little pockets around the world, but it basically emulates nature, and we'll get into the details of that. And I'm going to show you clips from the docuseries as we go along today. I'll be going for about 30 minutes with the presentation, and then we can open it up for Q&A after that. So here we go. And so the research started in 2018 in the Southeast US. And basically the grazing that we're looking at, adaptive multi-paddock grazing, emulates the way the bison moved across the Great Plains, which built incredibly deep topsoil, incredibly deep A layers of soil. Some folks say up to 15 feet deep, which is how deep the roots were going. And so the bison are basically the original land managers for North America, the Great Plains and prairies and all that stuff. With adaptive multi-paddock grazing, AMP grazing, farmers will break up their farm into small paddocks, and they'll move their animals frequently, 2-3 times a day during the growing season. I was in South Africa last summer, which was their winter, and they were moving their animals 10 times a day. I'd never even heard of that before. And so what it is the animals eat about half the forage and they stomp the rest down, so the soil is covered, which is like huge and huge and huge to have that soil covered at all times, either with plants or stomped down, keeps it moist, keeps the microbes alive, and it's the microbes that are driving the system. So they eat half, stomp down the rest, their manure, their urine's evenly spreaded, and then they're moved on. And then once that land gets to rest, photosynthesis kicks off and a lot of plants grow. And in this manner, most of the farms are resting most of the time. And that's really the key piece to this. And so across the way there, their neighbors, that first slide was in Woodville, Mississippi, Cooper and Katie Hurst. You'll be meeting them in some clips. This is their neighbor, the Fergusons. They are conventional cattle grazers, cattle farmers. And so they have 6 big giant paddocks that they leave their animals in for 2-3 weeks at a time. And so what happens is the animals go wherever they want, they eat what they want, they overeat it, and the forage is kept very low, like you can't hide a golf ball in that field. And that's aesthetically what people want. It does look beautiful, but it's not really calling in nature. It's not helping the soil. It's not getting roots really deep, because the shorter the tops are, the shorter the roots are. And so we wanted to study what happens when you have these 2 different managements right across the fence. And we did that in replication. So what we studied was the animal well-being, the farmer well-being, the microbes, the plants, the nutrient density of the plants, how much of the land is covered, birds, bugs. We studied water infiltration, soil carbon, soil nitrogen, and that's everything. And the greenhouse gas cycling. Yep, pretty important. And we did that work in the Southeast US. So we did this in 5 farm pairs, 3 of which are right across the fence and 2 of which are a little bit down the road. And what we did was we made sure we had the same soil type on both sides of the fence, that both were grazing, and that the conventional farmer was grazing in a manner that was very much the county average. And we looked for good grazers on both sides of the fence. And the soil type was really important. Actually, we tried to match slope and aspect to the sun. We really tried to match as much as possible that very important piece, so it was apples to apples as much as you can in the real world. The management was the difference. And so that was some basis for our study. And,
what does that make?
And I'm just gonna go back here. So now I'm gonna show you some clips from the film. What's happening here is the first person you're gonna see is a guy named Wallace Ferguson. He's the son of the owners of his land. His parents own the land. He's the conventional farmer. And he's on the porch talking to his neighbor, Cooper Hurst, who's the adaptive farmer. Wallace, you're gonna see first, he can't get it in his head that Cooper does not put down nitrogen fertilizer. It's not registering yet, because he's so used to that cost and that expense and that time. So here's this clip.
What does that make you think? Like what he's saying right there, that's not the way you work.
No, but it's, I understand it. But the thing is, I'm just saying that grass is going to grow when you put fertilizer on it. Without putting fertilizer on it, you think I'm wasting my time even planting it. But
everything you're struggling with, we've been there. So
Okay.
You can't feel or say anything that we haven't said.
Yeah.
We've been there.
it's just hard to think of how you could do this without putting it up. I'm being honest.
Yeah,
I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
You know my dad.
Yeah.
He's as good as gold. And you telling him you don't have to spend him. He loves that. Yeah.
But I'm telling you, your dad would eat it up. He loves the land. He loves the farm. He loves his cattle.
But you know, if you're not spending money
Yeah.
wastefully,
And that's where we are. We are not into wasting money.
So I mentioned that we studied birds. What I didn't understand when we were making this film, when we were out there doing the research and making the film at the same time, was how important the bobwhite quail was to the farmers in our study. And so this is a piece where you're going to meet our bird guy, Mike McGraw, and see some more about what the quail means to these folks.
Yes.
Bob White. Bob White.
They say their name. Bob White? Just delightful to hear that sound in the landscape. From the 90s to 2014, the bobwhite averaged approximately 5% decrease in overall population. So there's been over 85% population decrease up to 2014.
I do know this, Peter. When I was younger, they had quail everywhere. They're not there anymore.
So have you heard Bob White's while we've been here?
Yeah, I have. When we got right before we came on the porch, I heard that, and I kind of thought somebody was messing with me. You're hearing things, but I have had one or two 10 years ago.
This year, we're hearing quail from daylight to dark, from front to back, and everywhere in between. It really makes you think. It makes you think.
So I thought that with the money savings from not putting fertilizer down, with the idea that quail is right across the fence on his neighbor's land, that Wallace would want to change straight away. And when I came back a year later, as we were doing more science and more filming, I found out that Wallace and Cooper hadn't spoken about grazing again. And actually, that was the first time they ever did speak about grazing, and they've been neighbors and friends for 25 years. So it's really interesting. And so I realized this work was going to be more challenging than I expected. Now we're going to get into the results of the research. We came back many years later and gave data to the farmers as much as possible. We had the two farm families across the fence sit together and get the data. This first piece is going to be on the nitrogen. And so what this slide means, what's important about this slide is the adaptive farmers, the AMP farmers, don't put the nitrogen fertilizer down, don't have that expense. It's tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. Yet they had more usable nitrogen in their soil than their neighbors who are putting down a lot of nitrogen, which then can wash into waterways and cause incredible problems down the line. But even on their own farm, they're not getting as much nitrogen in their soil, usable nitrogen, as their neighbors who are just using the animals to be the fertilizer. And let's see here. So this is a clip of Cooper and Katie talking a bit more about the nitrogen.
Yeah, I can remember writing a check for $90,000 on this farm one year on fertilizing, and the weather not cooperate, and literally get no growth. I mean, like no growth. And so that was when we looked at each other and we said, don't let any of us get weak kneed again.
We never fertilized
and we never fertilized, and that's been 5 years. We never fertilized again. I just wish I had the money we had spent over the years, but we did what we thought we knew to do. That stress is totally off of us.
And so this was self-reported dollars in 2018, 2019 from the farmers, savings about $50,000 a year, the AMP farmers. Then, of course, once the Russians invaded Ukraine, that number doubled and tripled, and now it's been sort of a roller coaster. So it's a significant amount of money for the farmers. Now we're going to talk about water. So Teddy Gentry is the founding member and bass player for Alabama, which is the most successful country music band ever. Most sales, most #1 hits. He's adaptively farming his land. Across the fence is the lead singer and founder of Alabama, his cousin Randy, and Randy's conventionally grazing his land, both doing a very good job. And so I'm talking to Teddy here about water. And so the difference between the two sides is about 2 inches of infiltration of rain every hour. And so that 2 inches every hour adds up quickly. And as probably most people on this webinar know, we're getting bigger and bigger rain events. So the ability to be soaking up that rain quickly is going to make a farm much more resilient and actually make it usable. And so what's that 2 inches look like graphically? Well, if you get 1 acre inch of water, that's 27,000 gallons. So it's an acre 1 inch deep. If you go 2 inches deep, that's going to be 54,000 gallons. And so if you have a 1,000-acre farm, let's just say, which both of those gentlemen do around, we're looking at 54 million gallons of water that's coming in to Teddy's side of the fence and washing away on Randy's side of the fence every hour of a big rain event. And so here's Teddy's reaction to that.
That's huge. I mean, that should make somebody want to change. I mean, that in itself, that in itself said, well, I mean, it's quite a difference. Wow.
So I mentioned that we studied birds, and in this segment we're gonna focus on grassland birds, which have been the grasslands have been decimated across the U.S. We're losing over 1 million acres of grassland every year in the U.S. right now. Some people say it's actually more grasslands being lost in the U.S. per year right now than land being lost in the Amazon. Not a competition you want to be in either country, but it's just to mention the scale. And ranch land is grassland, and grassland birds, when the rangeland and ranchland and pasture land is managed in a way that's supporting nature, it can be a really quick turnaround for areas for birds and bird families to grow. So now we're going to get into some more birds, and you're going to meet some more of our farm families as well. Oh, a little bit more data. Sorry about that. So here's, oops, let me go back just a little bit so I can give you that first slide. There we go. So this is the overall data, 5 farm pairs each side totaled up, and you can see it's significantly different, and we're talking along a fence line. And then we're going to show you the Kentucky numbers. I'm actually in Kentucky right now. I'm from Louisville. I'm home. And so you can see the difference between the adaptive side of the fence and the conventional side. Now you're going to see our bird guy again and meet some more of our farmers.
So it just tells the story of a functional system and one that's broken, essentially.
That's sad. That's really sad.
What makes it sad?
Well, because, I mean, you know, they don't have any place to live over there. They need a place to live. Where are they? They should be there. That's horrible. That is, it's terrible.
What do y'all think about the science that we've shared with you today? What thoughts are you having about what you've been presented?
It's showing things that I've been doing wrong for a long time. And I said, well, I've been making a mistake all these years, you know?
It's not about mistakes. It's just about, hey, this might work better. That's all it is.
What we're supposed to do now. How do we get the carbon back? How do we do this?
So when Prentice asked me that question, I realized how open he was to change, and I realized that the openness of farmers to change when they're given data, especially localized data, could be a huge opportunity. And I also noticed very clearly in this process that the conventional farmers were very curious about what was happening across the fence, but they were just too polite to ask their neighbors. And the adaptive farmers didn't want to tell other people what to do. So they were, in a way, too polite to tell. And so if we can sort of melt that politeness with respectful conversations, I think there's a huge opportunity for change where it will benefit the farmers. Our data is showing it. We see it day in, day out worldwide. I'm wearing a shirt from Iceland where I was invited to go with Alan Williams and Chris Nichols in April. And this type of grazing is working really well there, and it was mind-blowing. It was really cool. And I recommend anyone who wants to go to Iceland go. It's really cool. So we let this data that we were sharing with all the farmers, obviously today I'm just sharing you with just tiny, tiny pieces of it. we let it sink in. And then that spring, we went back.
What data affected you more than any other data that got you thinking, or?
Hearing that the land is unhealthy because we have not got the species of birds that should be here. That broke my heart. So I want it to be healthy, you know. That's our job, is to take care of it.
And so I mentioned earlier the greenhouse gas cycling data. We did soil cores for the nitrogen data you saw earlier, and the soil carbon data was also much higher on the AMP side than the conventional side. But this is now 2 years of data every 30 seconds, measuring the three main greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide. And when you adjust for those and the time frame of how long it takes for them to go away, you get CO2e, CO2 equivalent. And so in our study in the Southeast US, we saw that the AMP side was drawing down 12.1 tons of CO2e per hectare per year. And we were surprised that the conventional side was also drawing down in the grazing portion of their animals' life cycle. It was also a greenhouse gas sink. Obviously, once you go to a feedlot, once the animals go to a feedlot, and then you have to account for all of those greenhouse gas emissions and the greenhouse gas emissions of the growing of the corn, the use of the nitrogen, the way most corn is grown right now, it's not a sink at all. But this little piece of it is. That was very interesting to us. So in the Southeast, there's 15.8 million hectares of grazing land. And if we got these results on all of those areas of grazing land, which most are not being grazed adaptively right now, that would be about 191 million tons of CO2 per hectare, tons of CO2e per year in the Southeast US. And so in about 5 years and some change, we would get to a gigaton. So that's big if we can get all the farmers to change, big if, but it gives us sight. And that's actually what my team is now working towards. This only happens, this kind of massive change that we're talking about, it only happens if the farmers want it. In the US, we've had two other big, massive changes. Once the mechanical plow came in with John Deere in the late 1800s, massive adoption, massive change, a lot of plowing. And we now know the destructive part of that plowing, and we see obviously clearly the dust storms of the 30s, but we're having dust storms now this summer. The other thing that was a really big, quick adoption was synthetic fertilizer, nitrogen fertilizer after World War II. Huge adoption, widespread change. So we know we can have widespread change. Can this be one of those? Can this be the third one in the US and worldwide? So now, if farmers want to change, we have a guy on our team, Alan Williams. He's a good friend. I've been working with him since 2013. Alan was in our film, Soil Carbon Cowboys, our short film. And he's on our team. He helped us scout the farms. And he's a scientist himself. He's a farmer himself. And he's a teacher of adaptive practices, regenerative practices. And so what we offered all the conventional farmers on our study was, if you would like, if you want, after you've seen the data, Alan to come visit your farm, the answer is yes, and we'll do that quickly. And 4 out of the 5 conventional farmers said yes. And so that to me was a really good sign. And so what I'm going to show you now is a piece from those visits where 2 of the farmers just dove right in. So this is about it's about a 5-minute clip, and then we'll open it up for Q.
Up our poly wire.
Horse grass is tall, ain't it?
It is.
And hook it in and get it charged up. And then we're going to open the gate and let them come in and just observe what they're doing on this strip.
Okay.
So Marie, is this the first time you've done amp grazing?
Yeah.
Wallace, I guess we're ready if you want to let them in,
Okay.
and we'll sort of stand back because they're not used to us.
You're coming through.
Whoa, they're coming through. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. That's what I was afraid of.
What's happening?
They're going back out. Let them go. Let them go. This is not going to work.
We're going to have to regroup.
So Wallace,
Yes.
they don't quite understand because they've never done this before.
Be nice to just get one to go around that corner though. If one went, the rest would go. But I appreciate the help trying to get them down here for right now.
Oh, no, we tried.
Yeah.
We tried. The thing that did surprise me the most was the fact that we had 80+% of all the conventional grazers said, we want to make a change.
It's the first time in my life, I've been at this for over 60 years, that I have actually seen that. Within such a short period of time, people are amenable to even discuss it, let alone consider and asking questions on how do you do it.
I was inspired by the trust that's been built. And that's not something that happens typically between researchers and ranchers.
Are you excited about trying something new?
I think it's gonna work. I like the way it sounds good.
You know, some people aren't as willing to change. He's really been supportive of it. He likes this. He's just as impressed as I am.
2 hours after we had left Marie and Billy's farm, one of the cows made her way through the creek and to the pasture.
2 or 3 of them went, then they all just went. Once those 2 came, then I just got out of the way and the rest of them come on, you know. First time I've ever set it up like this and did it this way. And they seem to be pretty happy with it too. They're actually getting a field with a whole lot more stuff to eat and a whole lot more nutrients, you know. So if I can learn a better way, then I'm going to try to do it. I don't even remember how you guys got our information to come up and check our farm, but I'm glad you did.
Like this morning, I can tell you, I'm gonna go get them all in there.
You're going to try it again right now?
I'm excited about even just attempting to do it. It's like a no-brainer right now. If I'm not successful, okay, I at least tried it. That's why I'm looking at it.
They're all in. This is Wallace Ferguson's first hemp paddock success. How you feeling?
Good. That worked easy. That wasn't bad. Well, Miss, I appreciate it. I'm gonna be honest, I'm very glad Peter told me you will come, and just what you told me this morning is a lot of information, but it was good, detailed information that never had ever been explained to me before.
Right.
It's kind of making a lot more sense to me now. When I met Peter, and he never really pushed me on anything. I think that might have helped. You know, if you say, hey, this is the way to do it, and I'm hard-headed on certain things. I am, and that's, I guess, normal, but.
Hey, Wallace?
Yes.
What I've been thinking as I've been watching, it feels risky for anyone to change the way they're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm thinking now is the real risk is not changing. Would you agree or disagree?
I'd say yes, it'd be risky not to change it. You're not gonna make money doing it the way I've been doing it. And I've got proof across the fence. If I can get it to growing grass like my neighbor here, Cooper's got, it make me very happy. We'll see. I just know Cooper had quail over there, it made me mad. It was good to see it. It's good to hear it.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes, sir.
Open it up for Q&A, and let me see. Put up that QR code as well.
was a fantastic webinar, and it was interesting to see. This is sort of our first time seeing clips being brought to life in a webinar as well. So it was definitely more intriguing, and I was kind of on the edge of my seat because all these statistics being shown, it's sort of a foolproof. Why not try this method?
Yeah.
So we do have a couple of questions, and I'm glad you put back up that QR code for those that might have missed the introduction. Just sort of a short spiel. We have been gracious enough to be offered 50% off the rent and stream for this documentary. So if you go to rootsodeep.org, or you can scan that QR code, you have a way of checking out using that coupon code to get 50% off. So that is a fantastic offer, and it should be very much insightful for those that can view it more in depth. So we do have a couple of questions, like I mentioned. So this was mainly focused on the Southeast, and one particular viewer was wondering if there's been similar studies done in other climates, such as the Southwest, where they are located.
Yeah, we've got, our team is working in the Northern Great Plains right now, doing a lot of the same research in the Dakotas, because the Southeast is warm, wet, long growing season. We wanted something quite different. So cool, dry, short growing season in the Dakotas, in the Northern Great Plains. So we're doing that there. We have worked with folks at different levels. There's been some work in the UK by a group called FAI. They have a farm outside of Oxford, and they're showing very, very similar results. We haven't seen this kind of research in the Southwest yet. And so that's just costs a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time. Like my slide said, 2018 is when we started in the field. We all met for the first time at the beginning of 2014. It took nearly 5 years to meet, form a team. Well, actually, meeting and forming a team was quick. And then it took 5 years to raise the money to actually do the work. And the Northern Great Plains was always a hope of that initial funding that we got, and we were able to put that together.
That is a very true statement, in the fact that it does take a lot of financial aspect to it, but it is a great work to be done. Another similar climate question, based on your Iceland visit, and we're looking at sort of the northern farms in the US, how would AMP grazing be adapted in those cold climates with, snow cover for that portion of the year?
Yeah, there's a phrase, I'm just forgetting the phrase right now, swath grazing. So I presented to a conference in Edmonton, Alberta last December, so pretty far north. And the woman who organized the event lived a 6-hour drive north of Edmonton. And she grazes her cattle outside all year. And what she does is she grows a special crop that she harvests in the fall, and instead of baling it, she leaves it in these swaths. And so that's like basically her food over the winter, and the animals will dig through the snow to get to that swath. I know of animals in lots of different climates that will dig down. Like if they're given a choice between going in the barn and being outside, they will choose outside. There's a lot of experience from farmers where the animals are much healthier outside. Their coats are built to get thick and be outdoors. And if they're in a barn, they might get coated with manure on their backside, and that makes the coat actually less functional for keeping the animal warm, because there's the air is part of the warmth capability of the fur, the air inside. So if it gets matted, and so it's actually less healthy for the animals to be in the barn. And the folks in Iceland, they didn't barn their animals. And yeah, it's just, I see it over and over again around the world. The animals outdoors are much healthier all year long.
It's funny because when you were mentioning that, I was kind of thinking of humans as well. It's almost like the healthier humans are outside too, which is, it's fantastic to see that sort of thing represented in science. So we do have quite a few more. So you mentioned that the microbes die when the grass is eaten too short in that sort of conventional grazing. Is the presence of microbes why AMP paddocks have higher nitrogen than conventional paddocks?
Yeah, let me back that up a little bit. If I said that, I missed a couple of steps. So the microbes will die when the soil's exposed from overgrazing and the sun hits it and it gets to be 105, 110, 120, 150, 170 degrees. That's what's killing the microbes. It's because the soil's not covered. And in an overgrazing system, even where you do have stuff growing, you'll have lots of bare spots. So that's the death to the microbes. With regards to nitrogen, the animals themselves in their manure and urine, there's nitrogen there. It's the plethora of plants as well that the farmers are either adding, like are they adding in clover to what's growing naturally, or is what growing naturally also a nitrogen fixing plant? So it's sort of the whole system that is encouraging more nitrogen in the soil, and the microbes are absolutely part of that. The health of the microbes, the diversity of the microbes, the abundance of the microbes are all healthier. All those numbers are higher on the adaptive side. And it comes from covering the soil. The armor for the soil is the way Alan and his team describe it.
Great answer to that. Sort of anticipating the future, do you sense that there might be any pushback from fertilizer companies or sort of farmers that might be stuck in their ways to sort of prevent this from happening on a mass scale? I know you mentioned that it does take a lot of work to get something initiated by all. So if you could speak furthermore on just what you might anticipate from that.
Yeah, we've been out on the road for about 2 years with this film, showing it all over the world. We've got a very strong social media presence. @Carbon Cowboys is our handle. And we've got 760,000 followers that have come on and signed up during that 2-year period. We've got over 127 million views of the clips that we're posting. And there is hardly any criticism of this. And it's a very wide spectrum of people that are incredibly supportive, from folks who don't eat meat to most conservative folks you can think of, and everything in between. It's been an amazing result of this work. It's something we've worked towards for a long time in how we make movies and how we want to be very much listening to people, understanding where they're coming from, and finding common ground. And we discovered it's the ground. Like healthy soil is the commonest, most common of grounds. And so that we haven't seen pushback from companies at this point, but we do have very large food companies that are very engaged with us, either as funders of the work, continuing to fund, or looking at what we're going to do in the future, because they see the food supply chain is not resilient, not secure right now. And that is a big driver. With farmers, it's hard to change. I mean, I think we all understand that. I won't speak for all of you, all 81 of you, but I will say for me, change is hard. But what I was talking with Wallace in that last clip about was it's looking pretty strongly that it's riskier not to change at this point with what we know and the benefits that come with working with nature, both economically, with wildlife, with quality of life. And so we feel that, well, we're seeing it. When farmers see our work, they change. I mean, we're seeing that also around the world. And so our goal now is to really expand the reach of this research through the film, and then really expand, we can't clone Alan Williams, but how do we expand Understanding Ag, his company with Gabe Brown and their partners? How do we expand that so they can teach more and more and more farmers? And so we are actively working on that scaling up right now with support from the food industry folks that understand things have to change. Like, we cannot continue the way we're doing it. So that's where we're at right now. And I just realized we have a new program in our world. It's called the Peter Bick Show. It's a podcast. You can catch it on YouTube. And Alan Williams was episode 1. Gabe Brown is episode 2. And we're slowly putting those up. Season 1's got 13 episodes. And then if you want to really help us with Patreon, you can help support us, patreon.com/Carbon Cowboys. You see that up in the slide we're sharing. So I just want to put that stuff out there as well. Because to make change, we have to expand everything we do. We're in it for the long haul, I believe.
Of course. And speaking more of sort of what you noticed, I know you mentioned that seeing the difference in birds was surprising. Was there anything else that sort of surprised you the most when you were researching and comparing the two grazing styles? Was that sort of anything that challenged your expectations when you noticed anything?
All the indicators that we measured were better, a lot, significantly, statistically better. That was our hypothesis because we'd been on a number of farms, but quite frankly, I hadn't spent a lot of time on the conventional farms. We made a series of short films called Carbon Cowboys. That's on YouTube, Carbon Cowboys channel. And all 10 of those I spent on the adaptive side, looking over the fence, but not really spending time with the conventional farmers because I was kind of afraid to. I was told that the conventional farmer was very judgmental of the people we were filming. And for me, the biggest surprise, and I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, was that the conventional farmers were much more curious about what was happening. They just weren't wanting to get in their neighbor's business. And that curiosity we saw across the board. And that is, I think, a huge opportunity for bringing people into sharing knowledge and letting farmers make the decision for themselves, but making sure they've got the most current knowledge. And it's not a criticism of what they're doing. It's not a criticism of what their dad taught them or their mom taught them or their granddad or their grandmom or their uncle or their aunt. Not at all. It's just, this is what we know right now. And I mean, that's what we told the conventional farmers to even allow us to do the research was, we think we found a more productive, cheaper way of producing food. Would you please help us do the research to see if it's true, if our hypothesis is true from our visual observation and our much less robust measurements that we'd done up to that point. And farmers are smart. They love their land. As Gabe Brown says, they'd much rather sign their name on the back of a check than on the front of a check. So there's a lot of things that go into promoting and encouraging change. It just, it's going to take a lot of work.
Certainly, and that was a great in-depth answer for that. We are going to take one more question, and if y'all have any further questions, you can email info@microbe.com. We will also be happy to share, if Peter allows it, the slides for this, as well as what Microbial Insights has done for this project. If you have any more questions regarding sort of our quantum ag, or how did Microbial Insights step in to offer any testing for this, or how we could potentially offer testing for your project, you can reach out to info@microbe.com. Sort of our final question that will end off. Is there any way in the future that you could see different processes being adapted, like saying manage roadway medians or power line right-of-ways, not just particular farming as well, just sort of all in general healthy environments?
Yeah, we've thought a lot about that for a long time, because those roadways and utility right-of-ways and railroad right-of-ways are huge tracts of land that can be utilized. And when I was in South Africa last summer, you saw grazing in all of those places. Now, you didn't see adaptive grazing in all those places. You saw overgrazing in all those places, but you saw grazing. And the idea of different farming techniques that could be added, sheep are great. Goats are really wonderful in these situations. You got to move the goats pretty quickly, I believe, because they'll eat everything. But to like in the farmland, as we're driving to the farms, our ecologists like Steve Applebaum, he'll notice like crazy amounts of native species of plants growing in the ditches that were plowed up and not, really utilized on the farms. And now that the farmers are changing their grazing method, a lot of those native species are coming up. But we see a lot more in those ditches at a lot of places. So there's a huge opportunity just on the farms with native species. But in all those areas that we were just talking about, the right-of-ways, huge opportunity there. And animal impact is a great method. One thing that we've been tracking, and it's really exciting, is the Department of Defense is a huge landowner in the US, and the bases, all the Army bases and all the other bases, have a lot of grazing leases. And there's a fellow named Eric Chaya, who's a major in the US Army, and he got Camp San Luis Obispo, which is the California National Guard base, but they do a lot of training for everybody there. It used to be an Army base during after the First World War and through the Second World War. And it's right on the coast, central, sort of between Santa Barbara and Monterey. And he got the base commander to say, yes, you can try adaptive grazing with our rancher here if you can get the rancher who owns the lease to say yes. Eric presented the data to the rancher, and the rancher said, okay. And so we went out there and filmed in April. They were 7 months into the transition, and the grazing was saving that base big money from all the maintenance of maintaining all those fields where they do all of the ammunition and the trials and all the work that the soldiers are doing, all the battle reenactments and training. And it was actually making the fire hazards much, 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 much less. So it was enhancing their mission capability. And what they really are looking forward to is to get that meat into the commissary on the base, so that that higher nutrient density in the meat that's produced on grass, finished on grass, and that's work Dr. Stefan von Fleet is leading out of Utah State, get that into the soldiers. Soldiers have healthier bodies, increases the mission. So it was pretty wild to interview the base commander, and he had never thought he would be telling anyone that cows were helping him do his job, which was training people and getting them prepared to be defenders. It was amazing. And so that's going to be our 11th short film, our 11th Carbon Cowboy short film. So we're editing that right now. Don't know when it'll be done. Takes a while to make these films. But yeah, that was a story that I'm like, I'm getting the cameras out. We're going to film. And so utilizing big tracts of public land and things like that, this could be really powerful as a way to, in all the water mitigation and the fire hazard mitigation. It's pretty cool. Nature's got it going.
And that's amazing to hear. Someone did note in the comments as well that they saw in Boulder, Colorado, they were using a similar method to mitigate fire risks as well. So that is amazing to hear, sort of this adaptation to just better improve our environment and quality of life as well. Just want to end this by saying thank you so much for this presentation, Peter. Definitely we'll be in touch as far as getting the slides. That way people can sort of see what they may have missed or help answer any questions they may have had to sort of see those statistics again. If you have any further questions, you can email info@microbe.com. We can also get you in touch with Peter and the team. Peter, if you have some, go ahead and say it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to share this recording, that's the best way. I don't really share the slides at this point yet because it's a film in release. But if you want to share this recording with your wider group of folks, I'm all for that.
Yeah, we will have this posted shortly in our webinars tab. If you go to the homepage, it's at the top. You just click webinars. It'll be there shortly, either by the end of today or by the end of this week. And that way y'all can all get a refresh memory on these amazing clips and some of the statistics that were shared today. So once again, thank you so much, Peter. If you have anything else to say, feel free, but I just want to express our thanks from Microbial Insights for being able to hop on this webinar and present your findings, as well as this interesting documentary that you helped direct.
Yeah, well, just thank you, everybody. Thank you, Marshall, and thank you, Sam, and thank you, everyone at Microbial Insights, for your collaboration with our new work. I can't wait to see the data, and yeah, let's keep working together. This is great. Appreciate it.
Amazing. Well, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and we will all see you shortly at the next month's webinar. Thank y'all.
Thank you.